Hello. This is another short video for you. This is a 99 Prelude 2.2 liter VTEC engine. Kid brought it to me. He said that he thought it jumped timing. The initial problem with the vehicle was that he had the harness coming off of the crank position sensor, top dead center sensor combo, which this one has. This is a 99, but the engine in here is a 97, which still left the crank sensor below on the driver's side of the vehicle. Anyway, the harness had come off its connector and had wrapped around the CV shaft and destroyed the harness for the crank sensor. So he went ahead and he bought a new one and he installed it, and he was having a problem where the thing wouldn't start. He thought perhaps he had jumped timing. So what I did was I took apart the top end just to confirm that the timing was set correctly, and looked below, of course, timing cover off the side of the engine. Looked down below to make sure that the timing was set right, and it was. So I'm like, okay, next thing I'm going to check out is how was the install on this crank sensor. I looked down below, and well, first of all, one of the things this thing was doing was you'd get up to about 3,000 RPM and it would bounce off 3,000 RPM like a rev limiter. It wouldn't go above 3,000 RPM no matter what. So the code, I pulled an OBD code off of the engine, and it was stating that there was something wrong with the crank sensor. Okay, we'll jump to the point here. I took apart everything. If you look down in here, there's the crank sensor. This is a multiple sensor in one harness. It's a combination sensor in one harness. This is the one I was concerned with, and I looked into the gap there. See if I can get a little more light. That's a little bit better. And I noticed that the gap between, I brought everything up to top dead center on the compression stroke, that I noticed that the gap between the sensor on this side and this, well, I guess it's technically kind of a reluctor wheel that's built into the crank pulley, was really wide, and it still is. So I took this bolt apart, took this bolt out, and it's got a pin right there that slides into a hole, which is right there, to make sure that this thing is aligned right. Because when I opened it up, it wasn't aligned right. It was just bolted in, and the kid hadn't paid attention to that bottom liner, or that bottom hole that lines it up. So it was way out, it was sticking way out. The bolt was in it, but the gap between here was so big that he just wasn't able to read. So I pulled the thing out, stick it back in the hole, and I'm going to tighten it up, and the gap is now nice and tight there between that reluctor. Technically, I guess it is a reluctor. I'm not sure what the technical term for it is, the correct term, I guess. And see how much tighter that gap is there? So if you guys do these things and you have that problem where it goes into a sort of a limp mode where it won't let the car go above 3,000 RPM, it bounces like a rev limiter, and you just put a crank sensor in, just double check, make sure, take everything apart again, make sure you got that in that hole. There is an alignment hole behind there, just like I showed you. Make sure you got that in there, because if you don't, like I say, the gap between the sensor and that section of the wheel there is going to be way too large and it won't read. If it starts at all, you'll be lucky. This one, it hard started, and then it wouldn't go above 3,000 RPM. So that's the fix in this case. So again, you just put a crank sensor in, and now the thing won't run, won't go above 3,000 RPM or whatever. Double check your work, go back underneath, and make sure that you got that thing in there, in the alignment peg, into that hole, in the, I guess that's an oil pump housing, okay? So I hope this helps some people. I understand this is a pretty common problem. I've been seeing it all over the net with people doing their own work. So double check yours, and this may or may not be your issue, but it seems like it's a pretty common, honest mistake. So thanks for watching.